Hello, welcome to this video. I'm going to be taking you through the Python essentials basically. So if you're new to Python programming, this video is going to take you through the introduction to Python and hope you get some basic understanding of Python. So we've already gone through the installation of Python onto your machine. So at this point, I assume and expect that you have your Python installed. So what we are going to do is to get started. Maybe you can confirm the version of Python that is running on your machine, or if Python is installed on your machine by going to command line and type in py -- version. So this command will show you the installed version of Python onto your machine. Okay, so if you have your Python installed on the machine, I just need to create a folder somewhere where you're going to save your Python files. I'll call this folder so I'll open this folder and then open it in VS Code. Now there are different ways in which you can open your folder where you're going to save your work in VS Code. One of them is by opening the folder, then you click on this path, type cmd, then code space dot. So if you have VS Code installed on your machine, once you type in this command and press enter, it should open VS Code while pointing to that folder location, and then you can just go ahead and create your files. Otherwise, the other option could be, if you have your VS Code icon and your folder here, you can just drag and drop your folder into the VS Code, and then it will also open for you your folder in VS Code. That is option 2. And I think this is easiest. Or you could right click on your folder, so then get this option of open with code. The reason as to why it is better to open the entire folder is because if you have many files in your folder, it gets easy for you to quickly access all of them. But also, most importantly, it helps you not to misplace your files. So once you open your entire folder, you can always utilize some of these icons that are displayed besides the folder name. So if you want to get started by creating a new file, you click on this first icon, and then it will open for you this prompt to put the file name. So we can call this intro.py. So all Python files must be saved with an extension of .py. That is rule number 1. So as we are going through this first video, I'll be talking about some basic Python programming rules. Like, as we all know, that Python is one of those unique programming languages that behaves in a different way as compared to the rest of the programming languages. Let's say those in C. Yeah, so it has got a unique behavior, and it has got unique acceptable rules, which we could call the semantics and syntax acceptable programming rules for Python. So first one, all your Python files must be having this extension of .py. So after you creating your file, then you can go ahead and write your Python code. Always the first statement for beginners is by printing out your first statement that says hello world. So in Python, for you, if you want to display anything in the console or in the terminal or in command line, we use the Python function which is print and this print takes in parameters or a parameter of any data type. So since it is our first command to write, then we are going to say hello world. So we save this. So I'll run this file. Now on my VS Code, I've already installed the Python extension with the Python IntelliSense that gives me this debug button. So I can just click on it, and then it runs my work in the terminal. So if you don't have this this button in your VS Code, you just go to extensions and then type in Python. Once you type in Python, let me connect to my internet. So once you type in Python, it is going to show you all the Python extensions. Now for my case, I already have that extension installed, and it is this. So you can see it is Python, and it is having below Python IntelliSense, Pylance, lighting, debugging, multi-threading, remote, Jupyter notebooks, code formatting, refactoring, unit tests. So this is the extension you need to install on your VS Code so that you can get this run button. So for my case, it is already installed, so I don't need to install it again. But for your case, you will have an option. If you don't have it installed, you will have an option of install. So okay, and so if you don't have it, the other option of you running your Python file is by going to the folder where you saved your work. It's by going to the folder where you saved your work. So this is our folder. You click besides the folder name here in the path, type cmd. Then now if you have many files, for now we only have one file, but if you have many files, it is also the same. You just need to write and type here the file name that you want to run. So you start by writing py and then the file name. So the file I want to run is intro.py. So this is py and then intro.py. So it will execute whatever is in that file in here in a command line. So the py just calls upon the Python interpreter that comes along with your Python, and then it runs for you or interprets for you whatever code that is written in this file. So that is the other way you can run your Python file for now. So after looking at the print now that we've written our first Python file, the next step is to understand some of the Python programming rules that are going to guide us through our programming principles for Python. Yeah, rule number 1 is that all commands in Python, unless otherwise, must start on the margin. There should be no space at the beginning of the line. The space I'm talking about is unnecessary space. There are cases where we need the space, and we shall see those different scenarios or cases where we need to add space and which space exactly. So for now, rule number 1, you must not have space at the beginning of your statement of Python. For instance, if I add here space, you're seeing it is already flagging errors. So you must keep that in mind. And now so that is rule number 1, and it is the rule of indentation. Python programming runs on indentation, given the fact that in Python we don't use curly braces like the rest of the other programming languages. We use indentation to represent those curly braces, and we shall look into that in the later stage. Yeah, so now we can proceed. Now that we've written our first Python file, let us look at some variable rules when it comes to Python. We all know that variables are basically temporary stores of data, and in Python we've also got the same the same opportunity of temporarily storing data in variables. So what happens in Python? If I want to store maybe a string variable of, if I want to store maybe a name in a variable, this is how it would look like. So I would have my variable called name, and then I will assign it a name of, let's say, Makubuya Rogers. What this implies is that in Python, it automatically assigns, or it automatically gives your variable a data type after you adding or assigning your variable a value. So it will look at the value that you've assigned to your variable, and then it will automatically tell the data type of this variable. So once I declare my variable name and then assign it this value, which is of string, the reason as to why it is of string is because it is in quotes. So each time you want to deal with a string, it must be in quotes. So by doing this, your program will understand that, okay, this is a string variable. So if I have another variable called age, which stores maybe age 40, this indicates that 40, if it is not in double quotes or single quotes, it indicates that 40 is an integer variable, is an integer value, and it will automatically assign an integer to your variable, which is age. So this is unique. Maybe there are some other programming languages that also do it this way. For instance, JavaScript and PHP. So in the rest of the other C programming languages you could have maybe if you're declaring or initializing a variable, you could have a statement like maybe int age is equal to 42. But when it comes to Python, you don't need to specify the data type. Here it could be maybe string name is equal to this name, if it was maybe a C programming language. But for this case, you don't need to state the data type. Python will automatically know the data type of your variable based on the assigned value. Yes, so now some basic rules, some basic variable naming rules when it comes to Python. One, your variable name must not have space. For instance, I can't say, if let's say this is a username, I can't say user name with space. Your variable must not have space between the different words. So if you have your variable name with more than one word, there are different ways in which you can combine those two words. One is by using maybe the camel case and say username. Alright, so each word that comes after the first word starts with maybe a capital letter. The other option could be by separating the two words using the underscore. So username with an underscore in the middle, and then you separate the words using that underscore. Yes, that takes me to other principle of symbols. The only accepted symbol in Python is the underscore. When you're naming variables, you can only use the underscore. The rest of the other symbols are not accepted. And yes, it is in good practice that as you're naming your variables, as you're giving them names, it is recommended, or it is good practice that you give them names that are in line with what with the values that you're going to store. For instance, this is a name, so there is no way I can maybe call it something that could not make sense, maybe XYZ. Fine, this program will still run without any bugs, but it is not a good programming principle for you to just name your variables anyhow, right? So if maybe you give this program to another programmer later in future, I will not understand what you meant by XYZ. So even if it is you and you come back to your program after 1 year, 2 years to maybe maintain the code, maybe to fix a bug, maybe to upgrade your project or your system, it will not make sense, or it will be difficult for you to understand what you meant, however much maybe even you document your work. So it is in good practice, it is a good programming principle that you properly name your variables based on the data, on the values that they are going to store. So I'll put back this to age, sorry, to name, and then this. So if it is storing age, why should you call it number? You see, the program is fine, the variable declaration is okay, but then the name you're giving your variable doesn't make sense and doesn't inform your value or its intended purpose. Alright, so when someone looks at this, they automatically know that this is a number, and there's no way they could think that it is age. That is one. So now, how do you print out two variables in one print statement? For instance, if I want to print out that maybe, hey, Makuvia Rogers, you are 40 years old. How do you print out those two variables in one print statement? So for you to print out two variables in one print statement, this is how it could look like. So you would use the print. So you would say the statement we want to use is maybe, hey, Makuvia Rogers, you are 40 years old, which is in our variable age. So the hey is a string, so we first put it in quotes with a space. Then for us to connect hey with a name, we can use a separator and say name. Since name is a variable, we don't need to put it in quotes. Then hey, name, you are. Then the UI is also in string format, so we shall put it in quotes. You are. You are. Separate, put there now the age variable. You are age, comma, still years old. So this separator helps us to combine strings and numbers into one statement. So if we save this and run it here in our terminal, see that it prints out, hey, Makuvia Rogers, you are 40 years old. So if they are string and string, you can as well use a concatenation symbol, which is a plus sign, to combine the two statements. So if I run this again, still works the same way. But now you can't concatenate a string and an integer. Let's see what happens. I'll run this again. See, it is returning errors. It is telling me can only concatenate string, not integer to string. So which indicates here when you try to concatenate two integers, it will instead now try to compute or perform an operation, which is not the case. So it is telling you can only concatenate a string and an integer. So that is another rule that we are looking at. Yes, so I'll put back this to a separator now that we know how to combine two variables or more than one variable into one statement, one print statement. All right, so I'll briefly talk about the different operators that we have in Python. These operators do not change. They are the same throughout or across all the different programming languages, but I'll talk about them for those of us who have not maybe interacted with other programming languages. Maybe if let's say Python is our first programming language to learn, I'm going to briefly talk about these operators, and maybe you'll go back and explore them. Like I've already said, we are not the first ones to to write these programs. So this information is also everywhere. So we have different operators. I'll just clean up this. We have different operators. We have the arithmetic. We have the arithmetic. We have the comparison. We have so this is arithmetic, comparison. We have the assignment. Operators, we have the ternary operators, and many more, but these are the main operators that we interact with. There are others, but these are the main four. So briefly, just to talk about the arithmetic. In the arithmetic operators, these are the ones that we use for mathematical operations or for mathematical computations. For example, the plus, the minus, the multiplication, the division, the modulus. So any symbol that is used for mathematical operations is taken to be an arithmetic operator. For example, so I'll comment these ones, I'll add them as comments. So this just briefly brings me to how we comment out code in Python. We use a slash, we use this hash. If you want to comment out a line, you click on the line and then you press Ctrl//, or you just add this hash. This is how you comment out one line. So I'm just commenting out these ones so that they are not executed when a program runs. So the commented out lines, each line that is put in green indicates that that line will not be executed when your program is running. So we are commenting out these ones so that we can see, we can be able now to run our programs with these documentations in. So we have our arithmetic operators. An example of how we use an arithmetic operator is when we say maybe sum is equal to 1 plus 2. So sum is a variable that is storing 1 plus 2, and at this point here we know that now sum is equal to 3. So we are using the plus symbol to add 1 and 2 to get the sum, which is 3. So the plus sign is an arithmetic operator. So we have another variable maybe called difference. Difference is equal to 2 minus 1. So the minus symbol represents an arithmetic operator that gets 2 and removes or subtracts 1. The other example could be maybe multiplication is equal to 1 maybe to 3 times 2, and this is a variable that is going to store 3 times 2. Alright, so this multiplication symbol here is an arithmetic operator that we are using to multiply 2 and 3. So the other could be the division symbol. So division is equal to, I'm using these words just to show you how each arithmetic operator, I'm using this I'm using the operator name as a variable name just to make meaning out of what we are trying to demonstrate. So this is maybe 4 divide by 2. So we are using the division symbol to perform an operation of dividing 4 by 2. So the other is the modulus. So modulus is equal to maybe 3 divided by 2. So what the sorry, this is modulus. What the modulus does, it will get 3 divided by 2 and then it gets the remainder. So in this case our modulus is 1. So 3 divided by 2, the remainder is 1. So it takes the remainder. So it divides, but it takes the remainder as the answer. So 3 divided by 2, it is 2, it is 1, remainder 1. So the answer is 1. If it is maybe 7 divided by 2, it will be maybe 3, remainder 1. So it will take 1 as the answer, like that. Yeah, so those are some of the arithmetic operators, and that's how they can be used. For now, I will now give more explanations to what these statements mean and what they are called. Next, we have the comparison operators. Which comparison operators here? These ones are used when we are comparing values or variables. For instance, if we have a variable called number 1, which is equal to 2, and we have a variable called number 2, which is equal maybe to 3. So we can use comparison operators to compare the different values in these variables. For instance, we have the equal to, which is indicated by double equal signs. We have the greater than, so the greater than, the less, we have this is the greater than. We have greater or equal to. We have the less than, and less, and we have less or equal to. We have the not equal, and these ones are used when we are comparing, especially when it comes to conditional statements, and these return a data type of true and false, true or false. For example, we can say if num1, if num1 is equal to num2, then what? Then here you type your code to be executed. Maybe say maybe print they are the same. So this double equal sign, which represents the equal to, will get the value in num1 and the value in num2 and compare the two if they are the same. Then you can also use the greater than or equal to or the not equal to see if they are not the same or if they are the same. So that is how. Don't mind about this if statement, we shall talk about them. I just wanted to show you how these operators work and when are they used. So we use them to compare values in different data types, in different variables. The other category of operators is the assignment. The assignment operator, what it does, we use them to assign values to variables, as you hear the name. So the first operator, and this is the commonly used one, is the single equal sign. which we've been using throughout here, but have not been talking about it. So now here we can understand why we use it. So we use the single equal sign to assign values to variables. For instance, here we used num1 is equal to num2. So I'm using the word equal to in quotes. Otherwise, this statement means that now variable number 1 is storing a value of 2, meaning that 2 is assigned to this variable number 1. So we are using the single equal sign to assign 2 to this variable. So that is one assignment operator. The other is the plus equal. So the rest of the other operators are when you combine the arithmetic operators with this equal sign. So plus equal, minus equal, multiplication equal, division equal, and then modulus equal. What this does is, for instance, if I have this statement, I'm going to show you a scenario where we use some of these ones. If I have a statement like maybe I've already declared num1. If let's say I want to add, if I say okay, I have two variables. If I have this statement, num1 is equal to num1 plus a 4. Remember, our num1 is already having a 2. So I'll get rid of this just to have lesser code. Remember, our num1 is already declared here and it is having a 2. So at this point here, I'm getting this num1, which is a 2, and on it I'm adding a 4. So let us print out this statement and see. Let us just print out num1. So I'll save this and run this in the terminal. So you see our num1 is 6 because it is getting a 2 and it is adding a 4 on the 2, which makes 6. So if I don't want to write this kind of expression, I would use this plus equal assignment operator to replace this by doing like this. So I will say num1 plus equal to 4. This statement is ideally the same. Let me not get rid of the other one. Let me just comment it out so that we can see. We can compare them clearly. So let me maintain this, but let me comment it out, and then I have this to represent or to replace this. So this was num1 is equal to num1 plus 4, which is now ideally num1, which is a 2 plus 4. So if I don't want to write this kind of expression, maybe to limit my codes, this is what I would do. I would just say on the value of num1, which is 2, just add on 4 and then assign the answer, which is 6, to num1 to become its new value. So if I save this and run it again, it will still give us the same value, which is 6. So if I change this to 5, it will say num1, which is num1 is 2. On 2 add a 5, which becomes 7. After making that operation, now assign the answer back to num1 so that num1 becomes a 7. So if I run that, it will give me 7. So you see now it has got this num1 performed this arithmetic operation onto num1, and then after performing it by adding the 5, it assigns the answer to num1 so that it updates the current value. So the same thing applies to the rest of these other symbols. It will subtract and then give the answer. It will multiply and then assign the multiplied answer. It will divide and then assign the divided the division. Then it will get the modulus and it gives it as the new current value. Then the ternary operators, for them, let's say you say num1 plus plus, I think this okay, I think these ones do not apply to Python. I think they apply to PHP. The ternary operators apply to PHP, maybe JavaScript, Java, C Sharp, and they are not applying to Python. So we can maintain these three operators: arithmetic, comparison, and assignment. Alright, yes, so now we've looked at the first principle of Python, indentation rule. We've looked at the variable naming rules. We've looked at operators. And now, once you have an operation performed on a variable, if you have an operation performed on a variable, this makes an expression. So once an operation is performed on a variable, it makes an expression. So these are all different expressions in Python. Yes, so in the next video we are going to look at now the different I think we can talk about those data types here. We close it at once so that the next time in the next video we just look at control flow statements, the if statements, the loops, and how they are being used. So in Python we also have different data types. We have the numeric data types and the non-numeric data types. In non-numeric we have the strings, we have the tuples, we have the dictionaries, and the lists. So in the numeric data types we have the integers, we have the float, we have the decimal, we have the double, and many more. So I think I'll create a separate video for the string data types. We look at dictionaries, we look at the tuples, we look at the lists, and then we have another video on numeric data types, integers, doubles, floats, and when they are used. Yes, thank you so much. So let's meet in the video.